Hello. I am going to now show you how to create that Excel forecasting document that I talked about in class. So first thing I'm going to do is share my screen. Here we are. I've actually already laid out my forecasting document. So let me just sort of walk you through it. I use Excel because that's what I'm most comfortable with, but feel free to also use Google Sheets. So the top half of the document, I am going to be doing the math to figure out what the actual market size is, the total demand, all products purchased in the given rounds looking into the future in the simulation. So at the top, I wrote total market demand. This is the size of the entire pie. The bottom half, we're going to be talking about how big our own slice of the pie is. On the left, I have the 5 products that we start with. We are Team Andrews, so the 5 products are Able, Acre, Atom, Aft, and Agape, and they correspond with traditional low, high performance, and size segments. Now, the reason I write the name of the segment is because in future rounds, I should say, um, your products might end up being in a different segment based on drift. And so you might be adjusting this information. Okay, so now let's take a look at um, we're going to take a look at the how to fill out the information in the from the Capstone Courier. So here we are on the dashboard of the simulation. So I'm going to go to reports, simulation reports, Capstone Courier, round 0, right? This is how everyone starts. So here we are on the Capstone Courier, looking down on page 5. We start with the traditional segment. So in 2026, traditional customers purchased 7,387,000 units, and it grows at a rate of 9.4%. So what were those numbers? Those numbers were 7387 and 9.4. 0.094, 7387. All right. Oh, it looks like I'd already done the formulas. Uh, it grows at a rate of 9.4% a year, which means that every year it's going to be 100% plus an additional 9%, right? So to figure out how much the total demand for the traditional segment will be in round 1, we take that round 0 demand, that 7387, and multiply it times 1 plus the growth rate. So in this case, D3 times parentheses 1 plus, and I use a dollar sign in front of the C and then the number 3. So column C, row 3. So the reason I put that dollar sign is then when I copy and paste that formula into the others, if you notice, rather than referring to simply the square next to it, copying and paste it, it keeps the column the same. So let me show you. If I had not put that dollar sign in, and then I copy and paste it, it instead of it referring to row C, it just refers to the one before it. Okay, so we're gonna copy and paste that whole thing. All right, so now let's fill out the low end. So looking down to the next page of the Capstone Courier, 8960, 11.6. 8960. Okay, so 8960 uh, square or cell, that's the word, cell D4 times 1 plus the growth rate, 1 plus C4, right? So 11.6 equals 8960. Okay, moving on to the high end. We've got 2554 and 16.3, 0.163. And last year's demand was 2,554,000, which means that next year it's this number, 2554 times 1 plus that 16.3% growth rate. And then round 2 is last year, round 1, times 1 plus that same growth rate. The growth rate stays the same for all 8 rounds of the simulation. And then moving on to performance, we have 1915 and oops, 19.7, wait, let's see, is that right? 19.7% growth rate. And I had already copied and pasted now the formulas in. So for example, looking here, way ahead, round 5 is that same growth rate, right? So row C, or sorry, column C, row 6 times H6 the year previous to that, right? So round 5's numbers were based on the growth rate growing from round 4's numbers. And then finally for agape, we have 1984, 18.3. 1984. Okay. And then it automatically filled it for me. So that are these numbers, this everything above this dark line here, the way I created it. Oh, and to create this dark line, I simply highlighted all of the squares and then I filled it in with black, right? So if you want a different color, we could fill it with purple if you like, right? And all I'm doing here, as a reminder, I talked about in class, is I am just creating a small spreadsheet for personal use to make my life easier because I don't want to have to keep doing the math again and again and again. It took me years of teaching the simulation before I realized, oh, I should just have my students create a spreadsheet. It would make their life so much easier. Okay, so now let's do this part below the purple line. So the numbers I have all right, this is for doing round 1 forecasting. So we have last year's potential market share. So what the market share was last year, not last year's potential, last year's not potential, last year's actual, actually no, last year's potential market share. Next year's market share, which is a forecast, which would equal next year's sales, which is the actual number of the forecast. And then looking ahead, what 1 month of sales equals, which is what we should produce, the total production needed, um, taking into account our remaining inventory, and that kind of is the final amount that we should manufacture. So let's take a look on the Capstone Courier and fill this out. So let's pretend like we're following a cost leadership. So we are going to be making decisions through research and development and through forecasting and through marketing that we think we're going to focus on the low end and the traditional segments. So we're going to hopefully try to grow our market share in those 2 areas. So taking a look first at our, here's our, oops, went too far. So this is on page 10 of the Capstone Courier. You notice here, I have my actual market share and my potential market share in round 0. These 2 numbers match. But if you, for example, your product was really popular and you stocked out, you ran out of product, more customers wanted your product than you had manufactured, your actual market share might be lower than your potential. If your product was so popular but you ran out, you might have had a 14% market share, but you could have had, say, a 19% market share. Okay? So these numbers all come from, so let's fill out our potential market share. So Able had a 13% market share. Acre had a 16.7% market share. Atom had a 14.3% market share. Aft had a 16.5% market share. And Size Agape had a 15.5% market share. Okay. So if you notice, a couple of these products, so for example, Acre sold to both, had a 16.7% market share of the low end and then 3.7% market share of the traditional segment. So if you look down here a little bit further, that's what we're talking about here. This product, Acre, mostly sold to the low end, but if you notice that Acre product is within the gray line, the light gray line of the traditional product. So a handful of traditional customers bought that product next year. I would tell you, I would advise you to pretend like that didn't happen. Just do your math based on the, where's my screen? There's my just do the math based on what the actual market share was, what the potential market share was last year. Because give it a year or two, and you're only gonna be selling to one segment. You're not gonna be selling to more than one segment. So just focus on the sales to that one segment. Okay, so following a cost leadership example, I think I'm going to be able to grow my market share for my traditional and low end products because I'm really focusing on lowering those prices. And I built a big factory so that my costs can go lower. So I think rather than having a 13% market share for my traditional product, I'll be able to have like an 18% market share. Nothing crazy, raising it by 5%. So I take that. Um, Remember the total market share for next year, right? From the total market demand. So the entire traditional segment will demand 8,081,000 units. And I think I'm going to have an 18% share of that, right? So I think I'm going to have 1455. This is the number that I would enter into the marketing tab. Oh, I didn't actually pull up the simulation. I can do that. This is the number for we're on able, right? We're on able. This is the number that this 1455 is the number I would enter as my forecast here on the marketing slider, 1460, okay? Then looking on the production tab, I have to see how much inventory I have. I have 189 units in inventory. Okay, so if I think I'm going to total sales for next year for my able product is going to be 1,455,000, that means every month I'm going to sell 121,000 products. 1455 divided by 12, right? So 12 is 8.3% of a year. So 1455 divided by 12 means that I want to manufacture that extra month of cushion. So what my actual forecast is plus an additional 1 month of cushion. So a total of 1.5 million units. That's what I think that's what I'm gonna produce next year, taking into account how much inventory I have. So then the number that I enter on my production tab is 1387, 1390. And actually I wanna do even a little bit more than that because I need my production after adjustment number to be at least 1387. So close enough. There we go. So I'm going to manufacture 1.4 million units of Able. Now let's do the whole thing again. So acre, again, remember in this example, it's a cost leadership. So instead of a 16.7% market share, I think I'm going to get like a 20, let's go up by 5%, 22% market share. So I think I'm going to sell, that 9,999%, 9,999,000, well, that's quite math, and I'll have 22% of that. So I think I will sell 2.2 million units. So that is the number I enter here. No. This is just on forecasting, but I will definitely need to build some bigger factories at some point in the very near future, but that's for a different lecture. Okay, so back to production. I only have 39 in inventory, so let's take that number into account. So this number here was my total sales forecast divided by 12. That's 1 extra month of cushion. So I take that extra month of cushion and I add it to my forecast. I then subtract that inventory, which gives me 2344 as the number that I need my production after adjustment to be. 2, 3. So this number needs to be bigger than 2344. Okay, 237. Okay, so now my production after adjustment number is bigger than 2344, so we're doing well. Okay, moving on to high end. Okay, so now high end, I had a 14.3% market share last year. I am not focusing on the high end. In fact, I'm allowing my high end product to eventually become my traditional product. So for the next year, I think I'll probably have about that same, let's go with a 13% market share. I'm certainly not going to grow it. Maybe I'll even have a little bit less than last year because I'm not focusing on it. That's okay. I am getting more market share in traditional and low end. So in this example, I'm going to give up a little bit of market share on high end. I only have so many resources that I can spend. So I'm going to focus my resources on buying bigger factories to be more automated to lower my labor costs in the traditional and low end segments. So market share for high end, if I have a 13% market share, that is 13% market share of 2970. And then 1 month of cushion is 32 units. So I need to have take into account my, wait, oh, I forgot to enter it on, okay, 386, 390, entering it on the production. I have 40 in inventory. So 378 is how many I need to make. So I need this number to be bigger than 378, close enough, looking good. All right, now down to aft. So for my performance product, I had a 16.5% market share last year. This year, I think I'll have a 15% market share. So that's 344 units. I have, I have how many in, I have 78 in inventory. So I need to enter, what is that number? 294. So I need this number, 297, close enough. And then finally, our last one, Agape, the size product. And again, let's say a 15% market share. So 350, 352. Oh, shoot. That was aft. Whoops. 344. Okay, with actually, and then moving to production, Agape, taking, oh, I have how much in, I'm at 62 in inventory. So I need to make 319,000 units next year. So this number over here, yep, bigger than 319. Okay, good. All right, and so that is how you create the forecasting spreadsheet. All right. Good luck, everyone.